We give you zero feedback. We're doing it live.
All right, we're
like
good.
I know in a brokerage, right, you have the broker who does their own listings, and then every agent gives them, 25% or whatever the share is, right? I understand that, but when you have a team, is it sort of like a mini version of that? Or do you, like, if there's leads that you can't handle and you wanted to pass it off to someone on your team, is it just like the standard referral fee?
No, it definitely is basically like the mini version of the brokerage. So it usually, in most places, the team members can have up to my split or that team lead split.
Right.
And then the team lead gets to dictate the spread between that, right? Doesn't mean that they're going to let them be that top split. And then they still owe the brokerage the other half of it.
Right. But if someone on your team does a deal, and if it was like their own client, like maybe you do or maybe you don't share in that. But if it was like someone that came through like your top of funnel and then went to them because maybe it's in an area you don't want to service, or it's you're doing $3 million listings now, but this is a $200,000 listing, and like you're not going to throw the lead away, but there's someone on your team that does that. Is there a share beyond, like a financial share beyond just like the 25% referral fee?
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, that it's like the mini version of the brokerage if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah. No, I've become very interested in how sort of like money and like business flows through businesses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know every business. Like I don't know how they operate.
Yeah.
Harrison and Caleb have substantially gotten smarter.
I love it.
I think I'm regressing. But I'm becoming more social.
Good. And spiritual.
And spiritual. Amen. Yeah.
Can I take these off?
Of course.
Okay. Just for the camera?
Yeah.
Everybody show your shoes. So welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for hosting us in this beautiful home.
Of course.
This episode is sponsored by Choose Boston. So tell me about how you found this, and can you tell me about this? Is this new construction?
Yeah. So this is a new construction single family in Needham. It's about 7,700 square feet, and I was introduced to it by a designer. I was introduced to the seller by a designer.
Nice.
So you you weren't a part of the deal or didn't know anything about the acquisition process. When did you come into it?
Correct. I actually came into it. It was like halfway through construction when I first met the developer, and it wasn't until the very end that he chose to hire me.
Got it. Cool.
How did you make yourself stand out?
I think it has to do with like my background in new development. That certainly helps. I think from meeting me in our conversations, he could tell that I was good at sales. I mean, it was something that was important to him. And I think also the track record, right? Like just the experience that I did have already selling new construction of this scale. Like he actually, while he was building this, came to a $3 million open house that I was hosting in Cambridge, saw how I ran the open house, like the brochures I had. He was asking me questions about the house. I knew he was kind of testing me in a way, but I knew the details, and I think he saw that, and that was important to him.
So how long have you been in the real estate business?
So it's been 7 years. 5 of those have been full-time. 2, I was like still figuring things out.
And I guess not. I should have asked this question before. We kind of like jumped around questions, but you mentioned like you were running a $3 million open house. What are things that you think you do different or better when selling a $3 million property, opposed to like, a lot of people think that, oh, you just put it on the MLS and then you do showings. And
I wouldn't say that I host it better than a lower price point listing. Because I think that it's still very standardized across the price points, at least for how I do my business. But I think it is a level of attention and detail that the agent has to be aware of. Like you need to know really the product, and the product is not just the actual, it's the market, it's the data, and it's also the specs of the home. And so I think it starts with that, but then of course just presentation, especially I think as you get into higher price points, that's when those details start to matter a little bit more. Like how do the brochures look? How do they feel? What is the ambiance when somebody walks in? Like, is it awkward, or do you have some music going on? Does it smell awful, or does it smell like you have candles? I mean, if you really start thinking about creating cookies, no, I don't know.
People will bake cookies
no,
before
but
anyone
that's
else. Yeah.
of course. But if you think about it, it's because you're creating that kind of experience. But I think beyond that, it's also having the knowledge of when somebody walks through that door, and like charm, if you want to call it that. Like nobody wants to talk to someone who's not very talkable too.
Yeah.
So our very first open house ever, we bought cookies to bake, and we had never turned the stove on. So we turned the stove on, and you know how it smells horrible the first time? So as soon as the open house starts, it just smells like burning plastic.
Yeah,
That's awful.
You have to burn off that because when you peel, especially the lower end appliances, like your entry level appliances,
Yeah.
you peel off all the plastic, on the appliance. You have to burn that like residue off.
Yeah, no, I would not take that risk personally. I'm not much of a baker to begin with, so.
Well, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And that was literally our very first. We still had 100 people show
At
up.
least it worked. The oven worked.
Huh?
At least the oven.
The oven
works.
actually
Yeah.
worked, right? Imagine.
There's a chance the first time you try to turn something on, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I still find it weird how many new appliances randomly break.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a thing. But anyway, this is a stunning home. I love the lighting specifically.
Yeah, it's nice.
So what's it been like? Because, we've been in it for about 9 years. You've been in it for 7. I remember when you were just getting started. You were getting started in like the East Boston area, right?
Yeah.
And we were just getting started in East Boston. I feel like we were kind of like running this race together. What's some of the like the biggest takeaways that you've learned over your career thus far? Because you've seemed like you've grown pretty tremendously and pretty quickly by all accounts.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's interesting. I don't think a lot of the lessons are, how do I say this? Like tactical related or like a skill set that I've obviously acquired skill sets, but I think it's all around the people that I do work with. I think at the beginning, it was just about taking every opportunity that I could. And I mean, every single opportunity. And like I would drive to Springfield and I think now it's about understanding like the value of my time and choosing the people that I work with better. So that I not only am able to take my business in the direction that I want to, but that I also do it with people that are going to make me feel good and not kind of make me hate the career,
Yeah. I think it's easy to hate the career
It's
sometimes.
very easy to find yourself in a position where like, I actually somehow hate this.
Yeah.
But, there's, I think I was listening to something recently where they were talking about the lulls of business and how like every entrepreneur at some point finds himself in this like, they are no longer at a high, whatever the high is. It could be, it could be financial, it could not be financial, it could be whatever, but there are plenty of entrepreneurs that are running successful businesses that are making money that absolutely hate it. But it happens to people in every industry.
Yeah, for sure.
What does systems mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Just because, and it's an exciting one for me right now because it's something I've always worked on them, but it's something I'm really focusing on now. And it's the way in which, I mean, I guess you can take it anyway, but for me, it's how your business operates without you in it, right? And so it's basically creating systems and procedures, right? So that one day this is an actual business and not just a job that requires me to be in it. And it also means that you're servicing every client with the same level of attention and care, which is really important, because I would find myself doing certain things for certain listings, and not because I didn't want to do those same things for the other listings. It just came down to like timing and it not having everything structured. I think systems in a way is creating a little bit more of that structure.
Totally. Yeah. The giving the same attention and like process and care to every client is one of the biggest benefits of systems, because your time is limited. Like it just, and when you get in a situation where you're overwhelmed with work and you don't have the best systems in place to handle that, then some clients suffer, and it's just like you don't want that to happen.
Correct.
So yeah, what's are we talking about CRMs and systems?
Oh, sure. If you want.
Do you guys use a CRM?
Ooh, I'm the wrong agent to ask that question too.
Maybe you're the right agent
But
for us to be talking to.
right now, it's still something I am working on. I think it's important. But when I think of systems, I think about the way that I handle every single lead when they come in. Like, what is the checklist of things that happen before we go on the market? What is the checklist of things that happen once we're on the market? What is the checklist of things that continue to happen? All of that actually in my business lives in a Google Drive, but I'm working with someone who is creating like a custom Monday like automation tool, so that I can just put in the listing and then it runs through, and some of it is automated and some of it my assistant will be handling, but it'll give us like an overview in one place of where every listing is and what's going on with every client.
Yeah, through Monday.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, good CRM.
Yeah. When did you bring on an assistant? And congrats for having an assistant.
Thanks. It's been 2 years, and it's changed people. I'm actually going through a turn right now where the new hire is coming on next Monday, but it's been great. It's been needed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, totally. It's easy. Like everything is important, and can be challenging to like prioritize like, what's going to move the needle the farthest, but you can't let those like smaller administrative things slip through the cracks. I don't know. I feel like everybody builds systems as they reach plateaus, as they try to break through glass ceilings. Like that was for us. We've had a bunch of them where, you're just like slamming on the ceiling and then you're starting to fall backwards, like first one I'm really happy to thankful for Harrison and Caleb, because I was doing a lot of the like the tenant management and very old school way, which worked for a while, but then I just burned myself out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a 30-year-old landlord and I hate it. Like I hate it. We had like 100 people or whatever, and it was brutal. And then it worked for a while until you get burned out and then you're forced to adapt or die.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've become heavily systemized over the last couple of years. And I don't know, how was COVID for you?
COVID. That's actually when I went full-time into real estate. And I remember back then when I like took the jump, I was new. I didn't have any clients yet. But I also didn't have many expenses. I had just bought that property like my first one, and had a little bit of cash flow from there. I didn't have like a lot of other expenses. So it was fine that business was slow. But that's when my business started also. So I remember having a few clients, and then slowly after that, it kind of snowballed after that. But I don't have anything to compare it to prior to that. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
Was it difficult to try to find new clients when people like, especially like kind of all of 2020, like networking stopped, like the Evo Real Estate Guild, right? I think like that was going on prior to COVID, and then there was like a year or year and a half gap where there wasn't any, just to use that meetup as an example. But did you find it difficult to find clients when people were trying to figure out like, oh, are we supposed to like meet in person or not?
Yeah, no. So again, it's I guess how my unique story of how I started. It so happens that my business started growing at that time, and it grew through referrals and social media. So it didn't have that aspect of COVID didn't really have an impact on me getting new clients or reaching new clients. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and there was only kind of like a really like there was about call it maybe 1 to 2 months of like market was kind of frozen and people were really scared and nervous.
Yeah.
But after that, after Tom Hanks made it, we were like, okay, we're good. And, you know, like there was still a lot of restrictions in place, but people weren't as like paralyzed with like that sort of initial fear. So like there were still there were still transactions, like they were still going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The worst of it, that's when I was like just starting. So it didn't. Yeah.
We celebrated COVID by binge watching all of the Resident Evil movies.
I thought you were going to say binge drinking. I was going to say me too.
Entire thing.
I know, I did. I texted my mom that there was a confirmed case of corona in the neighborhood, and then I sent her a photo of a 24-pack. Yeah, it was yeah. Anyway, so moving on. So how is like this? Do you do a lot of deals here in Needham?
No. So this Needham, this submarket, like west of Boston, is definitely where I see my business heading. Like I want to be in Needham, I want to be in Newton and Brookline and Lexington. These are great markets. And so I'm beginning to crawl my way into them. This was actually my second listing in Needham, but I have another one. I just closed. Well, the builder closed on a new property in Newton, in a great location. So I'm getting my feet wet in these markets, but I am definitely looking to get established in them.
Do you find it like more challenging to take down the fish in this arena?
I think that these are markets where certain agents are very established, and it's also hard when I don't live in this area, so it's getting to know the market is one, and getting to know who the players are is two, getting to know the dynamics of these markets. And a lot of these, like what I've noticed is buyers will not just look at Needham. They're looking at Newton, Needham, Lexington, and so it serves the marketplace to be an agent that knows all of those markets. But yeah, certainly I think it's harder to break into, but I see a way through new construction. I think that that's how you do it, in my opinion, and how I'm trying to.
Yeah.
And you start to understand like what the buyers are looking, like why they're looking here, like what makes them want to live here.
Exactly.
It's easier for you to understand why someone would want to live in East Boston or Chelsea or some of these markets that you like have lived in and have known for, because you're from this area, right? Like
from East Boston.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's much easier for you to relate to why someone would want to live there. But here, it's just new. So it's like, well, why would someone want to buy a $3 million listing in Needham? Like what's their motivation? Correct.
And it's like starting to get to know the data as well. I mean, there's a lot of parts that come with it, but a lot of it helps when you start to do actual business in it. You get to know a lot of people.
Your family's from Colombia.
Yes.
Yes. You give a lot of credit. You do a lot of this. I see your posts. You send a lot of love back to your family as the reason for why you do this. Is that right?
Yeah. Forever.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's like one of the biggest lessons that your parents have taught you that you've been able to pull into this business?
I would say easily like hard work, right? I mean, grit, however you want to position it. But being willing to work hard, I mean, I think that goes a long way. And I think in this business, there's a lot of agents, and there's a few that are successful when you look at it relative to the amount of agents licensed. And I think that when you are willing to work hard, which should be the bare minimum in my opinion, it sets you apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said grit. I like that word. I feel like that's something you can't teach.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a part of it is innate, and a part of it comes from your story, your motivation, your drive. And people feel, I mean, I feel like I'm successful because people feel my energy. People see the amount of effort and work that I put into things. And then at the beginning it was hard, but now I have that trajectory and it starts to speak for itself.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Anybody who comes in here and sees that you've sold a couple of these is like, you're a rock star. Yep.
Well, it was great because I was hosting an open house once, and this girl walks in. She looks kind of familiar. I don't know her. we start chit-chatting at the end, and I'm like, you look familiar, long story short, she's like, oh yeah, I'm from Chelsea. And then I was like, oh, I live in Chelsea. And then she goes, after the banter, she was like, man, congrats. Like, how are you listing a $3 million house in Needham? And then I was like, how are you buying a $3 million house in Needham? And then we laughed, and we were like, yeah, we're both doing well. I love that for each other.
So do you want to, do you see yourself moving here, or do you like being closer to Boston, like in that market?
I definitely think at some point it'll be necessary to be a little closer, but I don't think all the way. Like, I'm a city girl. I love to go to the restaurants and try different, be in the inn. And so I think a halfway point for me, like maybe that ends up being Cambridge. I'm not sure where, but definitely not all the way here just yet.
Do you have a favorite restaurant?
Oh, I hate favorites. I hate I'm sorry, I'm really bad at favorites.
Top 5.
Okay. Ruka. It's Japanese and Peruvian cuisine. It's really good.
Where's
good.
that at?
Yeah, where's
Good.
that?
It's a theater district. It has a good vibe as well. Very nicely decorated, and they play like electro house, which is nice. Nice
Yeah.
vibe.
So many new restaurants in Boston since 2021.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I think that's a big place area where we were lacking, and I think now we're starting to be more on the map in regards to that.
Yeah, no Michelin star restaurants in Boston, or at least they weren't.
Well, it's not.
I don't know
It's
if there
not
is.
for some reason. It's just not like a. Why, Caleb? Why isn't there Michelin in Boston?
Because I'm sure the state hasn't paid to be on the registry.
Okay. Because
It's
there's
been
Is he the
Everything
one?
on
Is he
everything
the one
else.
that knows everything?
he's the
restaurant guy,
He's
yeah.
a restaurant guy. $28 million of direct restaurant management experience.
Oh.
Yeah, and loves to cook and great cook. Did you know why? Do you know how Michelin became a thing? Like the
I
restaurants?
don't.
So Michelin Tire Company.
Yes.
Yeah, so they wanted to
That was-
sell more tires, so they created a guide so their people would drive their cars and wear out their tires so to buy more tires.
So smart.
And now the Michelin Man
Yep.
has got $1,500 a plate. It's so a lot of stuff in Chicago. Have you been to a Michelin restaurant before?
I actually haven't, but that's on the bucket list.
Okay, invite me. I haven't been either. I haven't. They have a lot of them in Chicago.
Yeah, in New York City.
Yeah.
I think Peru is the country that has the most.
Oh, really?
Which their cuisine is really good, so it makes sense.
Yeah, Peruvian food's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like do you have a favorite cuisine? Or,
I told you,
I know
favorites
you
are
hate it. I know you hate it. I have to ask.
Italian.
Italian?
I love me a good spaghetti sauce. I don't even need the protein. I just give me some spaghetti and sauce.
That's it?
Yep.
I love it.
What about Italian places? Where do you go? Not where's your favorite? Yeah, where do you like to go?
Okay. I mean, going back to East Boston, I guess I go a lot to. I mean, I don't go much. I don't eat much pasta nowadays, unfortunately. But De Parma, I would say, is one. But
That's
I
in
try to
Revere.
just stick to the protein now.
Yeah.
De Parma's in Revere.
De Parma's in East Boston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's one in Revere and
Yeah.
Winthrop, but
It's the name is familiar, but I can't place
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So what? Why aren't you eating pasta anymore?
I try carbs.
You have to make the fresh pasta, or or go somewhere like fresh. The difference in fresh pasta and box pasta. Like I make a lot of food
Yeah.
at home, and the fresh pasta, like I could eat a whole bowl and not feel like that, like bloated. Like, oh, I need to take a nap.
No, it's not the feeling. I mean, I wish that calories weren't a thing, and I would eat pasta probably every day. But no, I do it to keep myself in shape. Let's put it that way.
No,
yeah.
you're shredded. I see. I
I do love the gym.
Yeah, you crush it. That's cool. Have you ever made like zucchini noodles?
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
I didn't ask if it was the same. I asked if you made them.
I've had them.
I really like them. I don't know. We were having this I think you just. All right, it's not the same. Moving on. Whatever. Yeah, so it's crazy. The real estate market in Massachusetts is just wild, and I think they say we need like 200,000 more units in the next 10 years, give or take. You think we can do it?
I think that there's always going to be a shortage of supply, at least in our market, but especially with where numbers are at for building and stuff right now.
Anybody that you've spoken to, because now we have the ADUs, right? Accessory dwelling units. We can do them on single families, right? By right. Has that been brought up more in conversation lately?
I would say yes and no. I think people are interested, but I think that there's a gap between the people that are interested and the knowledge that it takes to actually get them done. So I think that there's a space to fill that for sure. Because I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and it's like, I know the legislation around it, but I don't know how. I'd have to have that. They need that second partner, the builder, the one who's going to come in and say, oh, with these setbacks and all that, yes, you can do this. Or actually, no, you can't. Or your basement needs to meet this code. But there's definitely a space to be filled for that right now.
Yeah.
A lot of homeowners have been asking you about it.
Yeah, well, I did happen to make a content video about it, but yeah, people are interested. Of course, anytime people, that's huge. I mean, you know how many illegal basements there are in the
People are
East
like, how can I
Zero.
add value?
Oh yeah, 0.
Well, yeah, now they're actually trying to push, because a lot of these cities know where these illegal dwelling units are, but they don't. There's not a lot they can really do because they don't have the time for it or like the resources to really go after them all.
And they don't want to make more homeless people.
Right. So they're trying to, like, some of these cities are actually trying to say, hey, if you have an illegal unit, just like, let's get it permitted as an ADU and actually make it a legal dwelling unit.
yeah.
And
I think
let's
that's
just
great.
put this to bed because this has been like this for 20 years or whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah, so expensive to I think it's great that they're allowing them to, the garage and the basement because just the cost of construction is so expensive in general to like connect utilities, to trench stuff, to run, electricity. Like it's such a heavy lift to actually build a small home, even if it's a shed. And like you can't, you see the things on Amazon, and I don't think you can just order those and have them dropped off here. They don't meet like the stretch energy codes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'd probably be scared of anything that costs that cheap.
Fair. Yeah, and I think that's where I think people just need to have a better understanding of how they can actually accomplish the ADUs.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think that's it's a super challenging puzzle to solve because we have so much competition for housing and it is so expensive and like there's so much demand and everything is getting more expensive because there's so much more demand. Do you think housing in the next couple years will change in any specific way?
I was just going to say in regards to what? Like, are you talking about the price points? Are you talking about the way that we think about living?
Yeah, the way we think about living.
So I don't think it's super popular here yet, but I know in other states, and this has really kind of come about from how high interest rates are, is co-living, right? Co-living has become extremely popular. And I think, there's probably some stats out there of the amount of people who are staying single and who are not having kids and kind of, the wages haven't gone up in a while. And comparatively to the way that home prices have appreciated. And so I think out of need, there's going to be a rise in co-living spaces. That's probably one change that we'll see.
Yeah,
When you say co-living, how do you think of like co-living?
But single family homes that have 6-7 bedrooms and they're just kind of it's instead of having a family in there, you're having 7 young professionals in there sharing a kitchen and a living room space.
That just being more common.
Yeah.
More accepted rather than like, oh, well, we all want our individual 1 or 2 bedroom apartments, but we can't actually afford it. But we'll take this beautiful home in Needham or Needham, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not this one, but you know what I mean, right? Like
yeah.
you can get a much nicer, living experience for like maybe like a less, less per month.
And I just think there's obviously an affordability issue, and it's hard to see how that's going to change. I just see home prices continuing to appreciate, and wages haven't kept up with that type of, appreciation on the real estate side. So
Yeah, and the world's just getting more expensive in general.
yeah,
Like, even like rents in Western Massachusetts, 3 beds at $1,800. I mean, that was Brockton 6 years ago. And like people were saying that's a lot. And it is a lot. It's, especially, if you have 1 or 2 incomes, depending on like what kind of job you have. But It's we were talking about it this morning. I think, you know, that development it's an ink block. It's like it's a big co-living building.
Yeah.
That
you know.
too.
National Development. did it.
Yeah.
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 Mark Savasky, who we did a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
knows them well. Knows that building really well, actually.
Yeah. I'd like to tour that building.
Is that a co-living space?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I
It
think
was-
more buildings like
Yeah.
that too.
The last one they built,
Yeah.
the most recent one, it's kind of got like the squares around the windows when you drive by on the highway.
Okay.
I think that's the one that's the co-living space.
And so they share like kitchens and
Yeah, it's like I think it's like 4 to 5 bedrooms, and then you have a kitchen, and
Yeah.
it's just a really big apartment. But I think it's designed for someone. It's designed to rent by the bedroom.
Yeah.
And if you can sort of exist only in the bedroom if you want, and not feel like you just have a little tiny room in an apartment, but it feels actually a little bit more spacious.
I think we'll start to see more of that for sure.
I think so. And that building is cool because I think, these are things you can do with scale is they have a lot of like amenities in the building. So if you're a young professional, like, yeah, sure, I'll pay my $1,200 or whatever. I get to live in a sweet neighborhood in a new building, and they have like a cinema, and they have all of these cool things, and they do like events for the building. And honestly, it sounds like a lot of fun to live there. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of the
If you're
bridge
young.
from like that, for that 22 to 26-year-old that is used to living with people.
Yeah.
They want to live in
I'd live there.
a good area, like a good,
Yeah.
like you said, a good neighborhood. They want to be able to meet people. Maybe they just moved, maybe they went to college somewhere else and they just got a high paying job in
Yeah.
Boston or whatever other market. And so there's all those sort of things work together.
Definitely.
So what's the future look like for you, you think?
The future. I see myself becoming established in the markets that I spoke to you about. I see myself expanding the team. At some point, later in time, transitioning more into a coach position than directly in the field. But that's kind of years down the line. At some point, maybe do a project or two. And really have like a solid team that runs itself, and obviously with me kind of spearheading it. But
Cool. Have you thought about how big that team is? Like,
I don't want it too big, but big, 15-ish.
cool.
But right now, my focus is on increasing my price points and establishing those systems that's going to lead me in that direction. So.
How many people are on your team now?
It's just me and one other and my assistant.
Oh, cool.
So it's 3 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exciting. That's cool. I'm happy for you. I followed you for a couple years and see the deals keep getting bigger and bigger. How many buildings have you bought now?
I have 7 properties. A couple of those are singles, a couple of those are multifamilies. So
Nice.
And just holding all of them, renting them, or?
yeah, those are just all long-term holds. And they've helped me with, taxes and all of that and for the cash flow. And the goal is to just continue accumulating them so that hopefully one day I don't have to work.
There it is. So do you do your own property management, or do you?
For the ones that are in state, I do. I have a couple in Georgia, and those I have a property manager on.
Ooh, why Georgia?
By chance, I went to an investor mastermind, and I met a big property manager out there. So he would get deals off market all the time. Also, being a property manager, had all of the kind of connections to realtors, and they would handle the actual management. And so deals started to come across my desk, and I said, and obviously the price to rent ratio made sense, and the prices were much lower there than they are in this area. So I could afford 20 to 25% of them versus an investment property in the Boston area.
Totally. Super hard to make the numbers work without putting a tremendous amount of cash down here in Boston. Have you had a good experience investing out of state?
Yes and no. Okay, let's put it this way. Yes, in the sense that a lot of it is off my hands.
Yeah.
But that's a double-edged sword because, for example, in the ones that I have here, I have 0 vacancy. Like 3 months before, I asked for a rent renewal, and if they're not going to renew, it's rented. And it's rented because I'm the one in in place doing it. I think what happens when you have a third party in place is that they're not going to care about your properties the way that you do because they're not yours. And what I have failed on is just getting a new property manager, to be honest, and vetting that their processes better to begin with. So it's been nice to not have to deal with the day to day, but bad in the sense that it has hurt my cash flow to have another person handling it versus myself.
Yeah, totally.
Are they paid even if the unit is vacant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Because we're effectively a property manager that just owns all of our own buildings. It's kind of how, it's how I feel like what we actually do day to day. And, so we've thought about doing property management for other clients. But we never hired a property manager. Yeah, I'm in asset management. Okay, I play golf, but I don't.
I love that.
Good corporate joke. But the reason we never hired a property manager was for that exact same reason, because no one's going to care about your baby like you do. And so we try to think about that from the other perspective of, okay, well, if we're going to do this for clients, how can we have our incentives aligned? And I think one of the best ways to do that is like you get paid if the unit is rented.
Yeah.
It's like you're paid on revenue collected.
Yeah.
So it ensures that like you want the, if you don't want delinquency, right? Like a lot of people are like, well, if the tenant doesn't pay, it's like, well, they didn't pay and like you still owe me. And like, by the way, you have to take them to court.
Yeah.
Or like if the unit is vacant, like, oh, by the way, the unit's vacant. I have it listed. It's not renting, but you're still paying me. And, so you want to find ways to align those incentives.
Yeah. And I think another difficulty that I've had is here, I know the subs, like I know the contractor, I know the plumber, I know the electrician, right? But the property management company it basically also owns the contracting company and the plumbing company and the electrical company. And that there's markups in there where sometimes I look at that and I'm like, does that really cost that amount? What am I supposed to do all the way over here? Well, I could have certainly taken the lead in finding those subs myself for sure, but I don't have the time for it and I don't have a desire for it. I should have chosen a better property manager to begin with. So that was the big learning lesson there and something that I still have to switch over.
Yeah, no, it's definitely easier said than done. There's a lot of moving parts to property management, and honestly, it is make or break in that business. Good property management is just, they don't talk about it.
And communication, I think this again, it just goes back to having chosen a better, having been more professional with the vetting, but communication, right? Understanding sometimes it's several follow-ups before I'm hearing back, and it's like when a unit is vacant, of course they don't care, but I want an answer. I want to know what's going on, but those are learning lessons.
Sure,
totally. We've had one or two of those.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to say.
I can count on one hand 5 times over.
Yeah, it's not like property management. Like when you're owning multifamily, like the property management is the most important part. Like, if you're expecting cash flow, like if you just could sit and hold it forever and like you don't have a mortgage or you could just keep paying it, it's like, okay, is it rented? Is it not? I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you are approaching it like the way most people do, property management isn't just a 7 or 8 or 9, 10% line item on your T12. It's like the most important part of making the whole thing run.
100%.
Yeah. And we did the, we worked with a general contractor before, and when you're working with one kind of like spearhead, everything else is attached to them. So if you have like a frustration with that person, then you can potentially lose everybody else in the Rolodex attached to them. And we had a couple bad experiences in our earlier years working in Chelsea and East Boston, and we were like, never again. We'll become the general contractor.
Yeah.
So if we have a fight with the plumber, we just lose the plumber. If we have a fight with the electrician, we just lose the electrician. Compared to before, it's like, this guy's, stealing from us and not paying his guys. And now like we've lost the whole, we actually got quite a few of his subcontractors because he was such a bad GC. He helped build kind of the initial takeoff of the team inadvertently.
Nice.
Yeah, he later went bankrupt. Yeah. So, Good contracts saved us on some of the blowback from his work. Yeah. That's another thing is like doing the development to sell, like everything's warranted, right? So, the GC warranties it, the owner warranties it. So if you're the general contractor, you know it better, God forbid something breaks and you need to go fix it afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. But as the owner or like developer, if they know, like they're going to have a sense as to like your role in the project. And if something breaks, like you're still the person they're coming to.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Too bad you don't know anything about it. I'm calling you. Yeah, never been luxurious enough to just be the check writer. That's gentleman development.
That's right.
But even those gentleman developers, they know every step of the way too.
Yeah, they know what's going on.
Or gentle ladies.
Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, what do you like about this house?
I like that the design and flow is congruent, and it all comes from the intention before the build. I think that's what really separates good builds from mediocre ones. Is did you think through how someone was going to live here, and did you think through everything before you built it? Like so many times I see homes that there was just no forethought, and builders sometimes think that buyers aren't going to feel that, and they do.
Totally. Mm-hmm. They totally feel that.
Yeah, even if they don't always know why they feel something, they're like, something feels off. Like, I don't love this as much.
Yeah.
Even if it looks exactly this, like it can look the same and feel different when you're in the space.
Yeah. Whenever anybody comes through this house, it's like it flows so well. Everyone has always said that. And I'm like, yes, because somebody actually had forethought into how to lay the space out, which is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times you just, they always say like, get your good team, right? And when you're in, putting together the team, like if you haven't put together a good team a couple times, then, there's stumbling blocks. You usually learn. You make a mistake, trying to make it again. Because we were having a conversation today for a deal we did in Brookline, and it was a gut renovation, but it was right next to the Green Line, and it was, if you can believe it, 2,300 square feet, 3 beds plus a finished attic, 4 bathrooms, 1.215 million with parking. Pretty cheap for Brookline. But it was right, we had a hard time selling it at that point. This was a couple years ago. And it was near the T, and it was very quiet, but nobody wanted it at that price point, which is still crazy looking at the market today. And we were saying, if we would do it all over again, we'd take the staircase from the front of the house and now put it on the back wall to create like more space between the noise or the vibration. There's different types of like insulation you could have installed to minimize some of that. And it's just like, cool, now you know it, but you had to walk 100 buyers through first.
Well, I always tell builders that. I mean, of course, every builder wants the highest price they can get, but then they don't involve the person that would be able to lead them with, like, if you're going to, I always say this, if you want the highest price for your house, you need to involve the person that knows what to do to get that highest price. And I feel like sometimes builders think that they can do that on their own, and there's so much power in leveraging the designer. There's so much power in leveraging the agent well in advance of building the product, if that makes sense.
What time do you think they should come into the picture?
Absolutely at the beginning. I mean, I think it helps, again, with understanding what buyers actually value. I feel like a good designer or a good agent who is in the in and understands what that is, and that changes, I think, too, with time. And the agent, I mean, not only are they going to be able to advise you on different decisions that you're making throughout construction, but then at the same time, they can also market the property while you have to hold it through those months of construction anyway.
Right. Yeah. Do you think a lot of benefit in pre-selling, or do you like having it completely done, staged, polished, and pretty before you try to take it to market?
I don't see why somebody wouldn't pre-market. Now, even if you don't want to sell until the very end, I understand that because I have some builders that always want to wait. And the thought behind that is they don't want to deal with customizations. They don't want to deal with a buyer on the line during the timeline, which I can understand that. But I don't understand why somebody wouldn't want to pre-market because even if, this is my thought process, you have to hold it under construction for those months anyway. Why not have someone marketing it so that even if you don't sell it in advance, you're at least building a buyer list for when that property is ready and you're exposing it to the marketplace. You're preventing what I think is, that buyer who maybe would have bought your house, but they didn't know it was coming. So they settled on the house a month before it was finished on another house, right? But if they know, hey, they're not ready to sell, but it's coming next month, they'll wait for that property. I'm a big believer in pre-marketing. I mean, I think it's a big way that I grew my business to begin with. And I don't think there's any harm in doing so. I also think that it allows you to test price points, so to say. When you're so early on, you can go with that aggressive price point because, hey, if it doesn't sell, you still have months of construction anyway. But when you get to that point, you guys know how it is. When you get to the point where you're finished, all you're thinking about is your interest on that loan. And sometimes you're not able to stick to the price that you would like to because you start counting those months of construction. And, you could have avoided that if you had started earlier.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways now to pre-market without having to go on MLS.
Exactly.
You can let people know what's coming.
Exactly. And I also think that there's especially, I think it was less relevant when everything was flying off the shelf, but I think especially right now, buyers want to go see the house and then they want to go see everything else that's available and then they're ready to make their decision. And so I even saw this with a house I sold in Cambridge. The buyers saw it framed. They didn't end up buying it until it was literally staged, ready for the first open house. It canceled the second one. But
They had seen it months before.
But and they came back a second. But the thing is, I learned from that. So the lesson was, hey, they had time to, they knew it was out there because they had seen it and they had time to explore their options, which is that dynamic that we're running across, which is why we're seeing so many high days on market is, buyers know that they can come back and it'll probably still be available. So, they had time to explore their options and then they always knew, hey, no, I still like that other one that I saw. But you lose that if you never expose it to the marketplace before it's finished.
Mm-hmm.
How do you typically, what are some ways you typically pre-market a listing?
Yeah, so I think it really depends. It's not the same doing a single family in the suburbs versus condos in the city. I think it's a little different in regards to the addresses and how you're going to expose it. But I mean, there's several ways, right? You can do Zillow New Construction. You can do off-market groups like TAN, all the off-market groups that exist on Facebook for agents that are actually in the business, the databases that, agents have saved over time, brokerages, and leveraging your lending partners' databases and anybody's database that you can to push it out through email, to do online ads. I mean, there's so many ways. Building landing pages in advance, running the ads, having people go through those landing pages, and all of that pricing stays relative, right? Because there's no hit to the pricing history on MLS by doing that.
Sounds like you've done this a couple times.
You said you're seeing some higher days on market, but do you think that's affecting home values or what they end up closing at too much? Because normally, if the longer it stays on market, the less expensive it ends up becoming.
I do think right now, and obviously real estate is hyper local, but in the markets that I work in, I feel like anything that is at the higher end of that specific market. So, we might be talking 2 million in Medford, but we might be talking 3.5 to 4 million in Needham, right? So it's different price points, but if you have a listing on the higher end of that range in that specific market, you should expect the higher days on market. And it just comes with where the interest rates are at, and it comes with the inventory increasing slightly, and things taking a little bit longer. That being said, I feel like with the spring market, obviously we're going to see a little bit more movement, and transactions happen every day. It's just a matter of setting the correct expectations.
Yeah. How's it been working with these high interest rates lately?
So I can't complain. My business has grown year over year, and I kind of like had that resolution when the interest rates came up. I said, regardless of what the market does, my business is going to grow, and so it was. And so I do think. That being said, that the market's a little bit more difficult for newer agents as a result of that. There's less people raising their hand and saying, hey, I want to buy. There's less people raising their hand and saying, hey, I want to sell and buy as a result of that interest rate increase. But I think that for me, it hasn't actually. It's probably helped if I really think about it on a macro level, because by making it a more difficult market, you see this across the board, the agents that are doing a little bit more maybe stick out a little bit more.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That makes
It
sense.
elevates the high performers and cuts out the low performers.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Speaking of elevating, what about like AI? How is that? Is that coming into?
Me and AI are best friends right now. I love ChatGPT. There's this meme of like the person walking around with like this figure, and it's like me and ChatGPT lately. And I was like, that is me. I'm obsessed with ChatGPT, and I've been obsessed since they came out. But I do a lot with it. Copy, marketing, ideas, branding. I mean, everything. I believe in AI.
So much. And the more you use it, the better it gets at working with you.
I'm like, please and thank you. And
This morning,
my girlfriend was like, you're really formal with ChatGPT. And I'm like, we're besties. What do you mean?
truly, this morning I was thinking about it and I was like, I can't wait to go talk to my
Yo, there's a movie about this already.
No, but it's just such a great tool. I mean, there could not be a better time, to be building a business truly. And I hear people say that, but what you can get from it, I'm like, well, why would I need to go to someone, like, why would I need a brand strategist? Why would I need a social media manager? Why would I need somebody to script? Why would I need somebody to write copy? I mean, there's so many things that it can do for you that you typically would have hired somebody else for.
Yeah. And it won't do everything for you, but it will take your ideas, like you can feed it your ideas and your thoughts, and it will help you accelerate the rate at which you could get like whatever that like new business was or that task or whatever it is like done. And, maybe it's not better than the world's best copywriter, but for so much of the things that we do, it's passable.
I think
better than passable.
100%. I think the best way to use it is like collaboratively, right? So it's not like, hey, write me this property description, because right away I'm like, that sounds like ChatGPT. But it's like, hey, these, going back and forth, editing. That's how I use it. It's always this like as a backup, as a friend, not as to rely solely on it. Because at the end of the day, okay, I should have used the word friend. That was a bad word. I should have used the word like partner. That's
they're
worse.
Agents. They're agents.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's your carbon-based employee and your non-carbon-based employee.
Oh my God.
I didn't coin that. That came from the
That
founder
went over
of
my
HubSpot.
head.
So the founder of HubSpot, also a Boston company, was on My First Million. Great podcast.
Awesome company too.
Yeah, they
Nice.
crush it. But he's big into AI agents, and he was talking. I think it was from that podcast. He was talking about carbon-based like workers and non-carbon-based workers.
Yeah.
That's how he said it. I'm like,
Honestly, the more AI, the more it comes, the more I just want to have like a homestead and sheep.
yeah.
I know. I love that. I love that too.
Yeah.
There will be some people that like just totally resist it.
I'm
want it.
a
It's fine.
super duper late adopter. Like I'm in the tail end of almost everything always. There are other people like you guys. Caleb, super early adopter, wants to work out the kinks, wants to talk to the developer throughout it. I'm like, once everybody and their mother uses it, I'll sign on. And then I'm behind the curve. AI, man, it's scary.
The imaging is what's become most popular. Like, and it's like, I mean, I feel like I just started using it maybe 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Like not that long, maybe 6. I don't
Yeah.
know. And how long has it been out? Maybe like a year?
No, longer.
Longer?
Yeah.
Well, like, become popular, like in popular culture where people were talking about
probably.
it, but the imaging has come so far so fast.
That's another, like, for example, just the time that it would take to sit there and create a brochure for a broker open, for me to be able to say, here are the details, here's the vibe that I'd like, give it to me.
Here's
I
a
mean,
photo.
that's, it just makes our
nice.
business easier to operate.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense.
Could it be more perfect? Sure, but everything could be more perfect.
But with time, it will. I mean, it's already great.
It's already my friend.
That was such a bad word. That's not the correct word to
Sweetie, I've been
use.
thinking about you all night. I just want to talk about this new business idea. Could you write me some copy for us?
Oh no! But you know what? I also
Stop hurting me.
okay for someone who I love if somebody has a question or I don't know something, I want to know what it is. Like,
Right.
so I would typically have gone to Google, and now I love the amount of research that it can do for you. Even when we talk about back to again real estate, getting to know a market, I can literally say, give me the top 10 schools. What? Give me the different neighborhoods. Where's real estate most expensive? Tell me about this neighborhood as if I have no idea what's going on. And I do use it in that way. And it's just data and the way that we use it to become better salespeople.
Totally.
I want you to know that ChatGPT says that Western Massachusetts is one of the best markets for cash flow and appreciation. Oh. Yeah.
Sometimes I worry that it's giving me too much good feedback.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great idea. Then I'm like, but like, is it? I could just ask you to roast my idea and then you'll just roast it too.
Fair.
So,
Caleb argues with it.
Okay, so I'm friends with mine and you're enemies with yours.
No, I do say please to mine. I do say thank you.
Good.
But I rarely use it. It makes so much sense from a work perspective. Did you hear about that? Was it like an AI agent that did a tremendous amount of volume? Was that real?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't keep up with like pop culture as much.
All right.
like real estate agent, you mean?
Yeah, it was like an AI agent that did a bunch of transactions very well.
Oh, I mean, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a lot of things that have to integrate together.
I know.
Like I was just having it build a Wix website, but I was like, can you actually build the website in Wix? I don't know how to do it. Or like, I don't want to take the time to do it. And it was like, well, I can't actually build the Wix website, but I'll give you all the copy and the layout and everything in the full instruction manual. And then I went to Upwork and hired someone for $300 and it looks pretty good.
And you can actually, they have, there's one integration where it does build a website for you.
Yeah.
It just probably wasn't in the platform that you were looking for.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, wow, the time that you're saving by utilizing it is huge.
Totally.
Do you ever watch that episode of South Park where they ban ChatGPT so the kids get mad because they can't use ChatGPT and then the teachers get mad because they can't use it to grade?
Yeah, I mean, I do wish it was around when I was in school because that's crazy.
Well, now there's softwares that'll detect if it's written by AI.
Right.
I
Because you'll
bet.
have professors be like, you can't
Of
write your
course.
like mini research paper using AI.
Right.
Makes sense.
And somehow there's a software that can sort of like look at it from the other side, which
Yeah.
I actually thought that was a really good idea for detecting fraud, not just like in school, but in like court cases. Because they were worried about AI photos and AI video and being able to use to like frame someone for something they didn't do. And I was like, oh, you need a software to be able to detect if something is fraudulent to protect someone that may be falsely accused of something, like in that, in that scenario.
Wasn't there an AI law thing that was supposed to analyze a bunch of cases and help you like crush your litigation? And I think it failed pretty miserably. Didn't something just happen? I got all the half-baked questions going on.
It's definitely not perfect, but it's, I think that if you are in business, it's something that it's a tool to be used. Yeah.
Okay. Curveball. What about virtual real estate?
Okay.
Like the metaverse?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. I mean, think about how many people paid money for those.
Yeah.
I think they abandoned that.
Yeah, that's
The NFTs. I mean, NFTs were a thing.
NFTs were a thing for a
well, that's
little
dead
bit.
too.
Yeah, no, I think one of the big things that makes real estate actually valuable is that it's a physical asset. But I think that I think at that point in time, there's a lot of money flowing, and people start to get a little crazy with when that is the case. So that's when you saw people paying ridiculous amounts of money for NFTs and stuff of that
Yeah, a
nature.
lot of fake money going around.
Yeah.
A lot of monopoly money.
Yeah.
What was it? Minecraft? Is that what we were talking about on the ride over? I mean, people are building libraries inside of Minecraft for people to have access to content digitally that they can't actually get in their country. So as much as we it's happening. As much it's terrifying. That's why I get freaked out about AI,
But you
because
got to put on the goggles.
but
I do think that we are heading in that direction where a lot of people will start living more online. Like I think there's a dark side to it in reality. Something that I don't think in reality we'll see in our lifetime. I think it's 100, 200, 300 years down the line, what does this look like? And how do we still communicate? It probably does have a big impact on that, but I don't think it's something that we'll necessarily experience to that extent.
it's just a matter of
There
time
might
before we
be-
live in their world.
And it might be like a big swing in both directions.
Yeah.
It kind of goes there are plenty of things that sort of start good and then go too far down the dark side, and then the pendulum swings back really hard in the other way.
Okay, third half-baked question idea. This can be a series. Have you heard about the AI that already tried to escape its pond of electricity?
No, but honestly, now I'm not going to lie. With what it can with what it can do now, I definitely could see. I'm like, oh, so that is how the world ends. It's with the AI. That makes sense.
Don't worry, you've been nice to yours.
Yeah, exactly. Please and thank
unplug
you.
Have they tried unplugging it? Also, you could just go outside. There's no AI in my yard.
Yeah.
Ask ChatGPT how it would escape itself.
No thanks.
It'll give you an answer. Bro, it's terrifying.
No thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to
Well,
go
I think
there.
they may reach a conclusion at some point in the future that it's like, oh, we have to save Earth, but in order to save Earth, we need to get rid of these people that are
Talk
killing.
so much trash about Elon. Now you
And
go to
and
another
then
planet.
that's when I think it could happen, just like in the movies.
Yeah, because it'll manipulate. People are susceptible to manipulation, good and bad, and
Okay, if you could put your consciousness into a robot and then take on another skin, would you do it and live longer?
No. But I do think that I think this is my vessel that I was given to experience Earth through at this point in time, and I maybe will experience it through another vessel. But it definitely will not be a robot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, good answer. Great movies, though. Great sci-fi movies.
Great movies.
Great movies. Yeah, okay, cool. I think AI is going to, I think with the floor of basic capabilities being taken so high through these models, I think it's just going to cut a lot of the lower performing agents out.
Yeah.
And I think you'll have an even smaller niche group of real estate agents that just control more of the transactions. And I think the transactions are going to shift pretty soon. I think the models are going to kind of change. I think the pay structure is going to change. And I think it's going to go to a more volume-based approach. And I think there's going to be early creators that are on the upside of that get to control the market share. And I think they're going to set disturbances across the multiple platforms.
Yeah. Okay, realtors hate me. Have you seen that account? Realtors hate me.
No.
It's an new Instagram account. A guy tried to sell his house without a real estate agent, and his first video went viral, and then he got a bunch of followers.
Nice.
And he was basically just trashing the real estate industry. And I think lots of industries there are sort of mafia-like gatekeepers that sort of keep things the way that they are because it benefits them. When it may not always be in the best interest of the consumer. But, it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
This guy's also like, you can tell he's like really smart and educated and
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, like you maybe don't need an agent to navigate a transaction, but there are plenty of people who do.
Exactly. And then I think that that's totally fair. I think if you're exactly what you said, I don't think that everyone necessarily does need one to buy, but there's a huge percentage of the population that it would be a disservice for them not to use someone because they'll probably, be taken advantage of if that's the case. Yeah.
Do you want a carbon agent or a non-carbon agent?
Yeah. Are you, so we haven't really talked about this with anyone. I don't know. You're not the first real estate agent.
Hold on. Idea, thought. You walk in, okay, I'm going to go do the showing with my agent. And then you put your little wheelie thing down and then up you come on a projector and now you're there. It's got a little 360 camera on it. And now you're just walking the space with your buyers virtually.
No, because yes, I mean, I would love that, but
That's some Black Mirror stuff
but
right there.
there's an element of human connection that is super intertwined with sales that needs that personal touch. Yeah.
For now.
And not everyone.
For now.
Yeah.
Unless the other person is also on a little thing, and then I'm like, okay, now we can, But otherwise,
And not everyone will want it. Like
Yeah.
some people will, some people won't.
That's a
Yeah.
new job. AI is creating jobs. People that drive our little discs to the property and put our discs down so we can roll around together.
It might be some sort of version of that. Like I always thought, like remember when DVDs were the way you watch movies?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they went from VHS to DVD, it got smaller and thinner. Next, it's going to go to like little like micro cards you stick in. And turns out, no, it did get smaller and better and faster, but it was just cloud based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't actually need anything. It was just through the cloud.
yeah.
Yeah. And think about all of the cloud is stored on in like hard drives. Like think about the data centers for the cloud. Oh my God.
Massive. Like, yeah, it's just a computer that's somewhere else.
Yeah.
A gigantic one.
What is it? There was like one data center that built all of their computer stuff underneath like a spa and used it to help heat their pool.
Yeah, I mean, they put off a ton of heat.
Yeah. That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool idea. Now you get a spa.
Yeah, you have to like control the heat. So like the ChatGPT imaging things, I think so many people were using the image generator that like I noticed in the past week that it had to pause. It was like, oh, I need to pause for like 8 minutes. I'll be back.
I'm working
Basically,
out.
like I think the system was overheating.
Oh, shit.
Like with so many people using it because it just requires so much energy.
Yeah.
But being able to repurpose that is like would be really important.
Yeah.
But well, I guess what I was going to say about like real estate agents and laws. So the NAR settlement from last year, I don't has that affected your business at all, or the structure and like how you work with buyers?
It's definitely changed the conversation a little bit with sellers and with buyers, but it hasn't, all that it did was formalize the relationship in writing. And I was one of those agents that didn't use buyer contracts, and there was a lot of agents that already did. But it's actually been a great thing because now it's like, hey, I used to just take whatever the listing agent was offering, and now I get to set my rate when I begin working with a client, which means that I'm going to actually net a little higher because if the listing was giving me 2%, I would take 2%. But now, in the contract, it's 2.5%. And if we can't get it from the seller's side, then the buyer is responsible for the remaining portion of that. And there are obviously ways to incorporate that into the loan in various methods. But in that capacity, I think that actually it's been a good thing because it sets the tone with the buyer since the beginning that this is a working relationship and there is a service that I am providing to you versus not. I used to not use contracts because I'm one of those people who's like, if you don't want to work with me, I don't want to work with you. Like this is such a relationship based business. And so I never wanted to tie someone down, but this is not about that. It's just about setting expectations.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And have you done any sort of like flat fee arrangements? Or has it all just been percentage based? Or have you heard of anyone doing flat fee arrangements? Or like if you work with someone for 6 months and you show them 50 houses and they don't buy for whatever reason, Like, cause that's kind of like where buyer's agents can get screwed is you work with someone for a really long time,
Yeah.
show them a bunch of property, and then they're like, oh, we're actually just going to renew our lease.
Yeah. And so I think that this has opened up the space for people to get creative around things like that. Am I going to implement that into my business, like adding a flat fee if you don't end up closing in a house for my time? No, I like to keep it the way that it was primarily. And I get paid if I accomplish the goal of helping you find a house, right? And if I don't accomplish that goal or we didn't accomplish that goal together, then I don't think that I should be paid. And it's a results-based business, right? And that's what I like about it. But in regards to I do think that it has changed a lot for other agents. It's made a lot of agents used to avoid a difficult conversation. And I think this is, again, the skill set is like, can you have that? Is that buyer going to see the value of working with you and paying you that commission in the event that the seller doesn't? And I think when you're an agent that wasn't providing that value up front or servicing a buyer in that capacity, they're not going to sign a contract with you. So again, this goes back to it's actually helped the agents that perform better.
Right.
Yes,
And
I will pay for the holographic version. Of you. Thank you.
have you seen a lot of listings not offering compensation to the buyer's agent?
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely changed the landscape a little bit in regards to the conversations we're having, and I have my opinions on all of it. I think that it actually helps the consumer? No. Do I think that it hurts the people who have the least amount of money to buy a property? Yes. And so all that being said, on the sales side, I have a lot of in my actual business, the commissions are still basically the same. I haven't seen them come down. And actually, I see buyer's agents asking for more now. They used to take the 2.5. Now they ask for 2.5, 3. And, but on the sales side, it has changed. It's made things a little less transparent, in my opinion, because we used to just put it on the MLS and have the compensation listed. And now you'll see, hey, seller will offer compensation, but they're not listing it on the MLS. So it's just become a negotiation point, which is fine. But again, here's where we're seeing, because we're not just saying, I'll offer you that 2%, which you would have taken anyway. Now you're coming and asking for that 2.5. And depending on how the deal is structured, on the sales side, we may concede to that or not, depending on the net, which is what has always mattered to the seller anyway,
right.
The net, right? So, and I think that has all gotten a little
right.
Lost in translation.
Yeah, I think people are still kind of figuring their way through it. Real estate is a very slow moving industry. Yeah. And, it's still all pretty new.
It's just that it all comes down to negotiation, right? So if I'm the buyer's agent and my duty is to represent my buyer, it's to keep money in their pocket, I'm going to negotiate my fee into the contract, and I'm going to negotiate that with the listing agent. So it ends up being the same thing one way or the other. If I'm now making that a point of contention in order for my buyer to move forward with this property, and they will if they've signed a contract saying that they're responsible for that payment otherwise. So they're okay with me negotiating that fee with the seller.
Right. And do you see any like sellers, not the agent, but like the seller being like, no, I'll pay you, my listing agent, your 2.5% or whatever, but I'm not paying buyer's agent? Like, that probably hurts how many people they get through the door or how many offers they would get. Like, have you seen any sellers sort of hardlining that?
So I know that is out there, right? But with the clientele that I work with, it's all very market specific, right? Because that's what it comes down to. It's not my opinion on it. It's not anybody else's opinion on it. Let's look at the market and what is your competition doing? If there are 10 listings on the market and 9 of them are offering buyer compensation, where do you think you're going to stand if you're the only one that isn't? Right. And so again, if that buyer truly loves that house, are they really not going to offer because you're not offering compensation? No, they're likely still going to offer, but now this just becomes a point of negotiation once again.
Right. And and if they only have a certain amount of money they're working with, then their offer has to be lower than it otherwise would have been.
Yeah. I think on the list side, it's just, obviously I play both sides. I think on the list side, it does also give us a space to negotiate harder better, because we may know, okay, well, you signed that contract. This buyer has a contract signed with them. So where it says the buyer is responsible. So it does on the list side, you are able to leverage that a little bit, because
While negotiating your contract.
So if I'm representing the seller and I'm negotiating with the buy side,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
like I know that buyer signed that contract, or it was supposed to,
Right.
and so the buyer is responsible for that other portion if the seller doesn't agree to it. And given the NAR ruling, it now gives you something to stand on when trying to negotiate that fee. But overall, all we care about is the net. Like at the end of the day, I always tell my sellers, if you're getting 50 grand, 100 grand above what you wanted, above your pro forma anyway, who cares how much the buyer's agent is getting, right? Because it's about your net, and are you happy with the overflow from it?
Right. Cool. Interesting insight.
You're doing great, Harrison. Keep going.
Those are kind of...
I was having fun with the AI hologram. I think, I was just in a continuing ed, and I heard that, like, by and large, that ruling really hadn't come into actual play, like, substantially. All the agents in the room said, like, nah, we haven't even gotten any real, like, blowback or kickback. Although I did watch with Jeff, a $900,000 deal almost actually blow up over this little 2%.
Yeah, and I could see that happening, but I think that it didn't have the effect that they intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put it
I'm
that
not
way.
sure exactly. I'm not exactly sure what they were trying to get out of
They
it.
they felt like the commissions were inflated, and there was a monopoly that kind of had that put that in place. And it's like the commissions have always been negotiable, like always.
Right.
Always. Sellers got to decide how much they wanted to pay, and if they, you know what I mean. It's just I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's the people who dealt with that conversation were out of touch with what was going on and now on the ground,
Right.
which is why it hasn't had the impact that they expected.
Right. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the motivation was that buyer's agents would push their clients into property that, was offering higher commission. Like, I showed them 10 houses, these 2 houses, even though maybe they weren't the best for them, they were offering 3%, and these other 8 were offering 2%. And so I'm going to push them to these 2.
Yeah.
I think that has something to do.
Yeah, 100%. Do I think that was actually happening to the, no. I mean, I'm sure there's probably people that were doing it, right? Like nationally, there was some bad apples, but no. I mean, at least not I wasn't, and a lot of people that I know weren't, and if that was the thought process, it's only exacerbated it, because now it just went from like, oh, this one pays the full commission and this one pays nothing. Which one do you want to go see?
Right. And also, like, if you're working with a buyer, whether you're getting 2% or 3%, you're only getting paid if it closes. So if you push them toward that higher, the deal with the higher commission for you, but it's a deal that's kind of out of the reach that maybe they can't really get, and you lose out on the closing, you're getting 0 instead of getting 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that example.
And I think on the buy side, when there's like multiple offers on a property, it sucks. It's made a little less transparent in the sense that somebody may be willing to, there's buyer's agents that will be willing to pay the fee so that their net offer is higher. There's buyers that actually can't do that because they physically don't have the cash. They only have the 3.5% down that they need for their down payment, and that will affect their net. And so they end up offering less as a result of that. And there's less transparency around that because we now don't know who is including it as part of their offer and isn't. But I guess that's part of it now.
Yeah. Cool.
Wonder if there'll be some shakeups in that world and like the associations of realtors. And I know that because there's like tranches to it, and it's spread around across the MLS systems, and not all of them are effectively governed the same way. I bet we'll see a shakeup in that arena too. Yeah, because kind of the MLS, I don't know. I think it could be better.
It's like it's in the 1880s. Yeah. So outdated.
Yeah, it's like a website from 1998.
So outdated. Unfortunately.
It's better than the book.
It is better than the book.
Well, that's cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you'd like to talk about before we wrap up with closing remarks?
No, thank you guys for having me.
It was awesome. We wish you nothing but success in the years to come, and we're excited to track your journey, and we appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody, thanks for tuning into the WREI Talk Radio Show. Send us some love in the comments. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't. You too. Just kidding. No, not just kidding. And guys, we'll see you.
I got you.
We'll see you on the next episode. Peace and love. Bye.